Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. Our next bowl game provides a matchup between two teams that have not won a bowl game in a very long time. Pittsburgh will be taking on Eastern Michigan out of the MAC in the Quicklane Bowl. The Panthers yet to win a bowl game since 2013. Eastern Michigan looking for their first bowl win since 1987. So one of these teams is finally going to capture a postseason victory. Obviously, Eastern Michigan's drought much longer than the Panthers, but regardless, would be a great way to end this 2019 campaign. And you look at Pittsburgh here, they were in the ACC Coastal Hunt right up until the very end. Right up until that 28-0 shutout loss to Virginia Tech. The reigning Coastal champions from 2018 were in it right till the end, and Pat Narduzzi doing a phenomenal job once again. Not the season they wanted. They wanted to repeat in the wide open ACC Coastal, but still going 7-5. Not a bad mark. Not a bad mark for the Panthers at all. And it should be noted that their last bowl win, came back in 2013. That bowl game was the Little Caesars Bowl, which is now the Quicklane Bowl. So the last time Pittsburgh won a bowl game, it was right here in Detroit at Ford Field. Maybe lightning will strike twice, and that bowl drought will be snapped. For Eastern Michigan, they are 6-6. There were questions of whether or not they were even going to get invited to a bowl game. Some of those lower-level Group of 5 teams, even though they might have 6 wins, don't always get invited. But they were invited to the Quicklane Bowl just an hour away from campus. Actually, less than that. Just 36 miles away from campus. So this is practically a home game for the Eagles, and you can expect a pretty good crowd of Eagles fans packing Ford Field in Detroit. That's a benefit that Eastern Michigan will have that Pittsburgh certainly will not. And once again, they're looking for their first bowl win all the way since 1987. They've been to 2 since then, but fallen just short. Both of those one-possession games. When you look at Pittsburgh and Eastern Michigan statistically, it's a very, very interesting case. It's one that you don't see very often in college football. Both of these schools allow an average of more points than they score. They're giving up more points than they're actually scoring on average. Pittsburgh averaging just 20.1 points per game offensively, but allowing 21.8 points per game defensively. Eastern Michigan scoring 29.1 points per game, but allowing 30.3 points per game. So the difference in those numbers, not too drastic when you look just a little over a point for Eastern Michigan and just a little over a point for Pittsburgh. But still, you don't see that very often in college football. And when you look at that, you question, how are these teams in a bowl game? How did Pittsburgh manage to win 7 games? And how did Eastern Michigan manage to win 6? Especially with Pittsburgh and some of their struggles on offense. They've only scored 20 points or more 4 times this season. 20 points or more 4 times this season. Yet here they are. They were in the race for the ACC Coastal, and they have 7 wins on the season. And a lot of that is in credit to their defense, which we'll get to here in a second. But also Kenny Pickett, who has improved, in my opinion, greatly, at least statistically through the air, than he did last season. And last year, Pittsburgh was a run-heavy team. You had Quandre Olson, you had Darren Hall, 2 1,000-yard rushers that really carried that Pittsburgh team to an ACC Coastal title. Now in 2019, they've relied more on the pass, and Kenny Pickett has thrown for nearly 1,000 yards more in 2019 than he did in 2018. But the biggest thing that concerns me is his touchdown to interception ratio. Just 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions in 2019. That's a cause of concern. He's really not playing lights-out football through the air, but this Pittsburgh offense we've seen at times is capable of putting up some points. So if Eastern Michigan decides to come out here and play lights-out football, there's no doubt in my mind that Pittsburgh would be able to keep up in a game like that. But Kenny Pickett's going to really need to improve his game just across the board if Pittsburgh wants to remain a contender in this Quicklane Bowl, but a contender next year in the Coastal in 2020. Eastern Michigan, they are led by a senior quarterback who I know would love more than anything to end that winless streak in the postseason for Eastern Michigan, senior quarterback Mike Glass III, who's thrown for over 2,800 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And Glass has been a little bit of a dual threat quarterback this year, adding 7 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So he is doing a phenomenal job for the Eagles program, a major reason why they are back in the postseason for the second straight year. So credit to him, and hopefully he can get the job done for this Eagles program, desperately searching for that victory. When you look at this game defensively, both these teams offensively, pass-happy teams, rely more on the pass than they do on the run. But when you look at it defensively, there's no doubt in my mind, no doubt in anybody's mind, that Pittsburgh owns that defensive edge. Eastern Michigan's stats out of the MAC are just about what you would expect. 225.8 passing yards per game allowed and 202.4 rushing yards per game allowed. So neither of those great marks, and that 202.4 rushing yards per game allowed is a major cause of concern, considering that Pittsburgh still averages over 120 rushing yards per game. So Kenny Pickett might not have to have a great game in this one because Eastern Michigan's rushing defense is so poor, they might be able to go back to that ground game like they did so much in 2018 and find success in Detroit the day after Christmas here. Eastern Michigan has also allowed their opponents to score 30 points or more 6 times this season. And that's a cause of concern. I know a lot of those have come in MAC play. I know some of those have come against some elite, Power 5 opponents. They played Kentucky out of the SEC, but managed to beat Illinois, a team that, yes, beat Wisconsin, beat Michigan State, and is going to a bowl game for the first time under Lovie Smith. So do not underestimate this Eagles squad by any means. But when I look at Pittsburgh here, they have a very good and very sneaky good defensive line, one that not enough people are talking about. We've talked about it enough. We talked about it going into the Virginia Tech game. We talked about it back in the preseason when we did our predictions. But this defensive line has quietly been one of the better ones in the entire country. And that's our key to the game right here. It's not whether Kenny Pickett can put up good numbers, not whether Mike Glass can continue his success. It's whether or not Eastern Michigan can contain Pittsburgh's defensive line. Can Eastern Michigan's offensive line stand strong against Pittsburgh's defensive line that has 98 tackles for a loss and 49 sacks? 49 sacks on the year for this Panthers defensive line. And here is our pick for the game based on that key that we just mentioned. We mentioned that Eastern Michigan has allowed 30 points or more in 6 games this season. That includes a 26-point loss to Central Michigan and a 29-point loss to Buffalo, both of those teams out of the MAC that are going to be playing in the postseason. But when I look at that, there's one common factor and one common stat that caught my eye. In those two blowout losses, I want to let that sink in. Eastern Michigan allowed 5 sacks each. 5 sacks to Central Michigan, 5 sacks to Buffalo. If Central Michigan and Buffalo can rack up 5 sacks in one game against Eastern Michigan, just imagine what this Panthers defensive line can do. Just imagine what this bigger, stronger, faster defensive line for Pittsburgh can do against this Eastern Michigan offensive line that has gotten better over the course of the season, has gotten better towards the end of this season, but is not going to be that much different compared to what they were against the Chippewas and the Bulls. This game is solely reliant on defense, but after looking at these stats, after going back and watching film for both these teams, it's no doubt in my mind that Pittsburgh will and should win this game at Ford Field in Detroit. It's going to be a game that relies more so on defense. It's going to be a fact of whether or not Pittsburgh can really generate that pass rush that's been so good all season long. That's going to make life very difficult for Mike Glass and this Eagles offense to find any positive yards. Keep in mind, 98 tackles for a loss. Pittsburgh should be able to take care of business in this game rather easily. The Eagles might hang around for maybe the first half, maybe a little longer. But Pittsburgh will, in fact, pull away. All the credit in the world due to their defense, the major reason why they're sitting at 7-5 right now. And with that win, the Panthers will finally clinch a bowl win for the first time since 2013 in the same building that they won their last game, while the Eagles will still have to wait just a little while longer to clinch their first since 1987. So guys, thank you for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to like this video and check out everything we have for you in the description below. The spread pick for the Quicklane Bowl over at thegridironexpert.com, along with all of our other bowl game spread picks, exclusive college football content offers as well in the description, so do not miss out on that. And as always, thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the Gridiron Expert.